Hi and welcome to Outwell and to the Newgate 5 from our classic collection. You can see here it's a tunnel design tent that can sleep up to 5 people. It has 2 bedrooms across the back, a good sealed living area in the middle here, and then this extended canopy at the front, all of which we'll show you in detail shortly. But first of all, I just want to talk you through the features on the outside. So to start off, I think one of the most important things about this particular tent is the fly sheet that we're using on here. This is our Outex AirTech material. So this is actually a polycotton, technical cotton. So it's actually 65% cotton and 35% polyester. So what does that mean? Well, there's a few advantages to this type of material. The first for me being that it's a very, very long lasting material. So actually under UV degradation, so basically sunlight, this is going to last a good long time. The second thing I would say is that it's actually very breathable. So if you're using it in warmer climates, then it's certainly going to keep you a lot more cool and comfortable inside the tent, but it actually will react to the temperature that it's in. So if it's a little bit cooler, it'll actually keep you a little bit warmer inside as well, because the fibre will react to the temperature that it's in. And the third thing I think to highlight here is that this tent is actually naturally waterproof. We do put a coating on the outside to help water bead off, but with it being a polycotton material, you'll find that it is actually naturally waterproof. All that needs to happen is the tent just needs to get wet and dry a few times and it will actually seal itself. So moving on from the fly sheet, I think next we can talk about the frame. So from front to back on this tent we're using a steel frame here. So of course what that means is you're going to have a really solid and sturdy structure. We do have a fiberglass pole at the front here, and this is one of our Duratec fiberglass. So you can see it does look a little bit different, and that's just to highlight the fact that it actually has a protective sheath on the outside of it, just to make it that little bit stronger than standard black fiberglass poles. We then also colour code the poles as well, so you can see we have the different colours on here, just to make sure that you're going to get the right pole in the right place, making pitching pretty easy. So I just mentioned there that it's a solid sturdy tent, but actually we add to that by using our wind stabiliser system, which is what this is here, and I'll just talk you through how that works. So when you're setting the tent up, all you have to do is simply wrap these Velcro tabs around the frame like this and bring this round into position to hold it in place. You find that there's one at the top and at the bottom of every pole all the way around the tent, and this is then where we attach our guy lines. When we take the guy lines out and peg them into the ground, it pulls the entire fly sheet against the frame of the tent, making it much more taut and therefore much more stable. So when it comes to weather-defying tents, this is certainly up there with them, because as I said earlier on, it's a really good quality material here that will seal itself in terms of waterproofing. And of course, with the use of our wind stabiliser and our steel frame on here, it's certainly a really solid tent as well. So some other features then to talk you through. We have our ventilation down the side here. There's some more on the other side as well. So even though this material is breathable, we still put some mesh ventilation on the sides, just to allow cool fresh air into the tent. You can easily get rid of these just by removing these Velcro tabs, popping them to the inside, and then we can push down just to sort of close these vents off. We have really large windows on the sides of the tent as well, and what you will notice here is that they're tinted windows. So these serve 2 key functions, one of which would be to reflect some of the sun away from the inside, just from a comfort point of view, but the second is of course to give much better privacy within the tent as well. So then you can also see the guy lines that we're using on here. We have our floating guy lines, so I'll just talk you through what that means. So the top half of the guy lines that are attached to the tent actually all tie in with the trim on the tent here, and then at the bottom you have these luminous parts, so a little bit brighter, so hopefully you're not going to trip over them. And the reason they're called floating is from a distance, actually the black kind of ties in with the tent, and then you have this floating luminous guy line towards the bottom here. Each of these does have its own retainer, so when it comes to packing the tent down, we can easily wrap them up and pop them into the little loops that are attached here, so that the next time you come to use the tent, the guy lines are easily accessible. So towards the front of the tent, as I said earlier, there is this canopy or porch area, if you like, at the front here, and I just want to highlight we have some mud valances around the front of it at the bottom, and again that's just there to encourage rainwater to run down and away from the inside. When we come round to the front, I'll just kind of highlight the space that you get in this front area here. It's actually quite a good wide sort of or deep space at the front here, certainly big enough to be able to pop a chair in or something like that. So if you're lucky enough for it to be a hot sunny day, you'll certainly get a good bit of shade here, or of course if you need a little bit of shelter from drizzle, then this is a good area. Also a good area for some storage units or perhaps a kitchen unit or something like that as well. So next, the front wall of the tent you can see is actually a vertical wall, so that increases the overall space on the inside, or certainly increases the overall usable space on the inside, because there's no sort of dead space with sloping walls around this area. So you do get a good amount of living space in here. The door itself is a D-door style, so you can see here that it zips open and rolls to the side, just making it a little bit more accessible. We then have large tinted windows around the front of the tent as well, including the main front door here. Behind the waterproof door here, you have a full mesh door, which we have just rolled away at the moment, but hopefully you can see this here. And again, that just zips into place as well. So again, great ventilation properties to this tent. So from this wall here to the back of the tent and side to side, the whole thing is completely sealed. So we have a sealed ground sheet in this area. You can see just here that it comes up around the edges, making sure that you're not going to have any drafts coming into the tent. It's going to keep out things like dirt, dust and sand, and hopefully those unwanted bugs as well. Just down at the front, I just want to highlight that the ground sheet can be folded flat as we have it here, and then pegged in two corners just to allow easy access in and out of the tent. But there is also a zipper along the front of the ground sheet here, so when you fold this up you can actually zip it onto the door, creating a good seal at the front here. So when we step back into the tent, one thing that should be quite apparent actually is just how much space there is in here. It's certainly a very tall tent. I'm quite tall myself at about 1.95 m, and I still have plenty of head height here. You can see we've got a good sized table and a chair in here at the moment, and there's still plenty of space around. So as I said earlier on, there are large windows which accentuates that space for sure, but if you do want a little bit more privacy, then each window has its own curtain, which you can see here is just rolled away at the moment. But if you do want a little bit more privacy, you can either bring them halfway up. We have some Velcro points here for the curtains, or of course you can fully close them as well. And then just to highlight down the side here, these are the mesh strips that I mentioned earlier on, which just aid the ventilation within the tent. So just up here in a central location where we actually have our Corvus strip light attached to it at the moment, there is a hanging point, so it actually works very well with something like this, or if you've got a smaller hanging lantern, it will work for that as well. And then running away from that on both sides, we actually have these cable tidies, and these are run down to where we have a cable entry point, and you can actually see we're using it at the moment. So you can easily bring cables into the tent, so power into the tent, without having to have this door open. We've got it open just now just to show you that there is a side entrance here. So I also just want to highlight on this side entrance as well, there is another full zippable mesh door here. So that's one on the front and one on the side. And certainly with this sort of breathable material, you will find that there is plenty of ventilation opportunities within this particular tent. So at the back of the tent is where the bedrooms are located. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 bedrooms here at the moment, and this tent can sleep up to 5 people. The way the bedrooms are attached in here is using our wave-shaped hanging point, which looks like this. Obviously it's got a nice sort of style element to it, but it also does have a good functionality of taking any stress off of this top seam of the bedrooms. So you can see we also have the stripes on here, just again to add to the sort of home away from home feel within this tent. We then have some storage pockets on the outside here, handy for smaller bits and pieces. Then we have full mesh doors as well on these bedrooms, so you can see this is actually what we call a no-seam mesh, so it's a much darker mesh than some other types of mesh here, and that gives great privacy within the bedrooms, but still allows for great ventilation as well. You can then see that the bedroom door itself is just rolled away here, so if you do want full privacy, that can of course be zipped closed. Inside the bedrooms you will find that we have some handy storage pockets along the side, just located down in this corner here. Of course there are more on the other side as well. Across the back we then have a large ventilation panel which corresponds to a panel on the fly sheet. And then separating the bedrooms we have this full zippable sheet of material here, which gives you those 2 bedrooms. If you do just want one large bedroom across the back, then all you have to do is unzip that and roll it away. Now these bedrooms also feature our universal system, and that's where we have this zip running down the middle just here, and we'll just show you now how that works. We have a couple of optional extras available for this tent, which would be the fleece carpet that you can see in the living area here, of course giving it a bit of comfort underfoot, but also that extra little bit of insulation. There's also a footprint available to go underneath this ground sheet, which is a good recommendation to keep the ground sheet clean and dry on those wet and muddy days. So there you have it then, that's all the features and the optional extras for the Newgate 5 from our classic collection. Thank you very much for watching.